Good morning, nerds. Welcome to the latest installment of Unity Gameplay Basics. This is episode 10. Today we're going to be focusing on background music and some different tricks that we can pull with that. Our first activity here is, or our first action that we need to take is actually getting our audio. And so for this, not being a good sound person myself, as I'm sure many of you guys aren't, I don't compose my own stuff, so I'm going to need to get some. And so what I did was I looked up free game music online and found myself a website. And the one that I found here is zapsplat.com. And I found some audio here that we were allowed to download. That was basically, free use as long as we cite it. This is my self-own and self-call out here, is that the citation should be in the comments of this video, but occasionally I forget stuff like that. And if I do forget, please call me out on that, because then I can fix it and be a good citizen. And that's also modeling for you guys that you should be good citizens too, and always cite your sources, cite your audio, etc. It's good practice, and it also keeps the lawyers from coming after you. Okay, so on zapsplat.com, I found the sound effect category, game music and loops. I kind of listened to a few of them. They definitely have the previews here. And I sort of liked this one here. It was game music, action, uplifting, house anthem, fast-paced retro game melody leading into something. I don't know the rest of that, but that's okay. And if you could do some previews here online. I'm not going to worry about that too much. And it gave me the option to download those. Well, the free version only allows you to do MP3s, but potentially I could download those as WAV files as well. You typically do want to do MP3 for music and WAV file for sound effects, and that has to do with the idea that your game is going to... Unity's going to need to compress and uncompress that audio for different situations, and generally speaking, MP3 is fine to use for background music and stuff as long as you're not doing something that's like super timed to music, like I don't know, like a Dance Dance Revolution or a Beat Saber kind of a game. If you're just playing random music in the background, it doesn't really matter. That compression will cause it to stutter for a split second at the beginning, which would throw your timings off in a rhythm game, but the rest, for most other genres of game, no one is ever going to notice. MP3 is also slightly lower fidelity than a WAV file. Most of that is stuff that the human ear can't hear anyways. But if your game needs to be deeply, deeply cinematic, or if you're making, like if I was working for Pixar, making a movie that I was going to show, to millions and millions of viewers, I would probably focus more on higher fidelity audio. But as a game developer, especially one who works primarily in mobile, MP3 works for me 99% of the time. So, again, as long as I'm not working on one of those rhythm games or something. Okay, so so I downloaded my MP3. I copied over onto my desktop here so that way it'd be easier for me to access. Again, that came from zapsplat.com, so thank you for allowing us to use your music today. What we're going to do here is learn how to go ahead and add it into Unity, and this is ridiculously fast and ridiculously easy. The first thing I'm going to do, I could technically just drag it into my assets folder, but if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I hate that. What I really want to do is I want to put it in its own folder, and for that, I'm going to call this folder music. You could just do a more generic sound file or sound folder that would have all of your sound effects, all of your music. I personally like separating them, both because it helps keep me organized and also because my usage cases for those two types are so radically different. So now that I've got my folder, I'm going to go ahead and go inside of that. I'm going to drag my file in there. And after a couple seconds of importing, it should show up. If we click on that, we can see it in the inspector. We've got a whole bunch of different options up here, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know, for example, what are the different compression formats? I do not know enough to even talk about this. If you're a sound engineer, you may care about a lot of this stuff. For your daily users, like I am just a game developer, and, audio isn't the most important thing in my setting or in my game. I'm most of this is going to work fine. And if you want to be fancier than this, you probably have hired a sound engineer anyways, who knows what they're doing on this stuff. So I usually leave these settings alone. The one thing I will comment on is that potentially you might want to force to mono, especially if you know it's going to be on a device like an iPad or something. It just streamlines some things. But again, generally I just leave this stuff alone. The only thing I really do over here is I do a quick play test and make sure that the audio comes through the way I think I want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here. And it certainly is playing. And I might just kind of sample it in a few spots. That sounds like it played. So we're done. That's it. That loop is a little over 3.5 minutes long, 3 minutes, 40 seconds. And that's going to do us. So there's my import. That's it. Again, I didn't really do anything there. I just kind of talked about stuff. But again, I just did do that quick little test. I've had a lot of people who didn't test their MP3. They're like, why isn't it playing? Why isn't it playing? And they go through and they do all these like troubleshooting steps. And then when we go back to the MP3 itself and we hit play, it like was muted or something and it literally just wasn't playing. So this is a fast way to save yourself a lot of pain later. Okay, so do that test. It's worth it. Okay, now that we've done that, we need to talk about how Unity handles sound. And I can walk you through the steps real fast, and it doesn't take long. But the things that we need to think about is how does Unity play a sound and how does Unity hear a sound? Because those are two different things. Think about it like in the real world. How do I hear sound? I hear it through my ears, which means that depending on the position of my head, what else is in front of my ears, things like that. Like right now I'm wearing noise canceling headphones and, you could, practically set a bomb off outside my house and I'm not going to hear it. Whereas, without those headphones on, obviously my ability to hear is a lot better. But it's always with me, right? And then other things like, for example, my microphone is again dependent on where it's positioned. So if I have it just sitting on my table, it's a headset mic. If I just have it sitting on my table, that audio pickup is not going to be very good and the computer's not going to hear much. Where if I have that microphone right in front of my mouth, it's going to pick up a lot. So it depends on where's the listener and where's the source, right? So by default, Unity, because you're trying to run into your own speaker systems and things like that as the player, Unity only allows for, not even usually, it only allows for one audio listener, and by default that's attached to the main camera. So it's going to drop right here, it's on there, and it basically represents the fact that if your camera is your eyes, then the audio listener is your ears. And so Unity is just making that assumption that that's where you want it, and that makes a lot of sense. And the cool thing about the audio listener, there's like no configuration there. You can see there's no settings or anything. But it also is aligned. So for example, my camera is right here. This is my right. And so this would be my left relative to the camera. And as we move around, when we start dealing with spatial audio, as we move around, it'll actually come through my right or left speaker or my right or left headphone as it should. When we're dealing with spatial audio. So, and that's all, again, pre-configured. There's nothing to set up there. It's just already there. You're already using it, whether you realize it or not. The other weird thing is even if your game doesn't have any sound in it, I would call out that Unity is expecting it to be there. If it's not there, it freaks out. So even if you have no audio in your game, leave that audio listener alone. Okay, now that we've got that figured out, now we're going to add a source. And again, our sources are where is the audio coming from? Now with something like, for example, a gunshot or something, we would want that source coming from the object that's shooting. For example, here's my hypothetical enemy that was doing some pathfinding earlier. If I want a gunshot sound, I would make sure that the source was the enemy. So that way I would hear it, again, spatially. Where is that gunshot coming from? Is it coming from my left? Is it coming from my right? Is it coming from behind me? And obviously the higher quality your headsets and things like that, the better that spatial audio will work for you. But we want it to work. Okay, is it quiet because he's far away? Is it loud because he's close? All those things matter. Now for background music, this is really easy because we just always want to hear it at a consistent volume around us. And that's going to be our most common setting, right? Like there's other, if we wanted to do something more diegetic, we had like radio station, like radios in game playing the audio, which I'll demonstrate after I do the first setup. Then we may want to change some of this and think about it a little bit less broadly. But for most use cases, 99% of the time, you're going to want a basic audio kind of on you, essentially. And that's kind of, again, if we're thinking about mental model, that's like if I was wearing a pair of headphones all the time and just, blaring my favorite music into my headphones, that music is going to stay at a consistent volume all the time, no matter where I go, where I'm looking, what directions I'm facing, etc., because it's just attached to me, and it's going to come along with me wherever I go. Conversely, if I had, like, for example, the TV in my living room, that to me changes volume depending on where I go. If I'm in the living room, it's pretty loud. If I go upstairs or go to the bathroom or something like that, then it's obviously going to get quieter and it's going to feel like it's coming from a direction. So, to add our music, the easiest thing to do is, again, I'm going to go to my main camera. I'm going to find my audio listener. And right there, I'm just going to also attach my source. So I'm going to go add component. All audio comes with a source. So I'm going to start typing in audio. And you can see the audio source right there. And this is, again, a lot of settings. 9 times out of 10, you don't need to mess with any of these. And so I'm just going to kind of drag that audio into the audio clip. It defaults to play on awake. So if you're doing music, this is perfect. Later on, when we play with sound effects, the very, very first thing we want to do is turn that off. And then since it is background music and I intend it to be in a loop, I'm going to go ahead and loop that. The other thing I might do here, there's not too many settings here that I actually really care about. You're going to notice I ignored all of this other stuff. I ignored output and mute and things like that. You can use mute. This is better to access through code, but maybe, hey, maybe I want to turn off the music for a minute or something like that. And so that's just a true false Boolean that we can access through code. But generally, what's the point of starting music muted if we weren't going to be using it? That just feels silly to me. So I almost never use that in the control panel, but from a coding standpoint, it's lovely to know that it's there. Priority is if you have too many audio outputs or audio sources in a scene, which ones am I going to hear the most? Which ones are going to take priority if I've got too many for the audio system to process? And I can notch it to 0 is high, or 255 is low, 256 I guess is low. And it defaults to 128. For music, I'm going to say it should be pretty high. And the main reason I want it pretty high, I want things like voiceovers and stuff like that to take priority over music if we really had to choose. But I want that music to be pretty high priority, because if it starts cutting out as we get like gunshots or something else in the game, then that's going to create a weird experience for the player. So usually for the background music, even though it's like the least important thing, it feels weird if it's cutting in and out. And so we want to basically increase that priority to a very low number is the increase. I can adjust my volume. This is great for leveling things out and kind of balancing your game. This is also attackable from UI controls and things like that, which means that you can actually create a volume settings knob and things like that to adjust that volume, relatively speaking, which is kind of a handy thing. So you can multiply that your volume by this volume, which allows me to balance my audio. Because like sometimes when you download a song, it's really loud, sometimes it's really quiet. So you can kind of play around with that balance. For now, I'm just gonna leave it at 1. And the other stuff here, I don't really mess with, except for I might mess with the spatial blending. I'm going to leave it at 2D, and I would strongly suggest you leave it at 2D for music, like background music. For any other audio, you want to probably notch it more over to the 3D realm. And that's it. I'm done. And actually, that's really all there is to it. So had I not stopped to explain everything, we would have been done quite a while ago. Basically, we just add our audio source, drag our audio clip in, and check the loop button. Maybe lower priority, and we're done. Like, that's it. It's that quick. And if I go ahead and hit play here, you should just hear that sound coming through as soon as the game actually starts. So, and we can hear that now. Listen to those funky beats. Okay, so that's it. We're done. But what I do want to call out is the next thing that we could do, and that'll take us a couple minutes to set up, but it's really not hard. And that's setting this up as spatial audio instead. So for example, again, that's that more diegetic experience where I've got things emitting sound like in-game radio stations or things like that. And so we want to be able to hear those. So what I'm going to do to set that up is I'm going to start off by deleting the audio source that I already created on my main camera. And so we're just going to say remove component on that. So I no longer have that, but I did leave my audio listener because again, that's kind of me, right? There's my eyes and my ears are on the main camera too. Okay, what I want to do for this, just to keep it simple, is I've got these 3 waypoints. One's here, and one's here. And I've got, so I want them to emit again, like they're kind of a radio station or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the first one here. I'm going to hold down my shift key on my keyboard and click on the last one. That will highlight them all. Alternatively, you could, I guess you can't box on this. I thought you could box, but apparently not. Okay, so I'm going to click on all of them. Again, I'm going to add component and I'm going to add that audio source. Most of this is going to look pretty familiar. I'm going to drag that into my audio clip. So again, I'm just dragging that sound file in. I'm going to play on awake and I'm going to go ahead and loop. And I think I accidentally, looks like I had my tower defense level selected. Nope. Okay. I'm okay. Never mind. Second guessing myself. Okay. So we've got that on loop. And that's great. I want to make sure. Okay, I've made some adjustments in a previous build here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to delete those again. You don't need to. I think I still have this left over from a practice attempt. So I'm going to remove that component on all of these. And I'm going to just do that again. And that was a mistake that I made before I got this started. You don't need to do that, and I'll get caught up to you where you are in just a second. I had left a few things in there that I thought I had cleared before I started recording the video. So back to this. I'm going to go again. If you missed it the first time, I'm going to go ahead and add an audio source. I've got them all 3 selected. I'm going to drag that clip in. And again, I'm going to click loop. So now I should be caught up to where I had left you a second ago. Okay, now that we've done this, what we really want to start doing is we're talking about spatial audio. And I have this spatial blend knob up here. So I'm going to just notch that. I'm going to take it all the way to 3D, which is 1. 0 is all 2D. 1 is all 3D. And I'm just going to set that spatial blend all the way up. If you wanted to hybrid it, the more 2D you are, the more you're going to hear it a little bit always, and then maybe louder as you get closer or something. And so you'd be able to hear it no matter where you went if it was a little bit 2D, but it wouldn't be as loud unless you were closer to the sources. Don't really want that, so I've always done this as kind of an all or nothing kind of a deal. And you can go into the 3D sound settings. If you click this little arrow here, it's going to give you just a ton of options here. I'm going to basically leave these kind of things alone. I'm going to just kind of nudge my spread a little bit, but that's about all I'm going to touch, I think. Actually, you know what? Let's just not even play with spread, so that way we're leaving things default for you. And then I'm also going to adjust the volume down. I'm going to just so that way we make sure that we're where we want to be. I'm going to lower it down to about 1/4. So I'm kind of aiming at like 0.25, and 251 is close enough. But I'm aiming for 0.25. So that's close. Okay, now that we've got all that done, I'm going to go ahead and again click back on my main camera. And so now what I should have is 3 small radios playing my music. I'm going to go ahead and hit play now. And it should also be spatial and ambient. I'm not sure how much of that is going to carry over into YouTube, so I'm going to kind of describe what I can hear. And right now, the first thing you should notice even through YouTube, and the thing that I'm noticing is I don't hear anything, which is kind of good, right? We wanted those audios to be spatial. So I have my scene view up, and so I'm gonna make sure if you don't, some of you probably have it kind of defaulted to something that looks like this. What I'm gonna do is I just kind of grabbed my game tab, drag it over to the right here, and kind of just docked it. And then now I've got my scene view on one side and my game view on the other. And I'm gonna take my scene view and I'm gonna make sure my main camera is selected. And I'm gonna kind of just drag this way. And now I can hear it a little bit. I can kind of hear something faint on my left side. And as I get closer to it, now you should probably be able to start hearing it on YouTube, but almost all of that audio is on my left. If I go over here, the music is hit in the middle of that loop there. Okay, now I can only hear it through my right, and it's pretty quiet. I don't think I should have gone down to 25% on that audio, but it's there. And I can hear it through my right earpiece. If I get further away from it, I can't. That fall off is pretty heavy. But I can hear it. Now if I get closer to this other one, again, the closer I get, kind of the more we can hear it. The further away, the less I can hear it. I'm not really happy with that distance. So again, I'm going to highlight all three of these, clicking one, shift, click the last one. And I think I'm going to go from 0.25 to like 0.5-ish. Close enough. All right, let's try that again. I just want to see what it does to that. Okay, now I can hear it because I did leave the camera kind of close to him. Oh, whoops, I have all those things selected. Let's undo that. I can sort of hear it right now, even though I'm positioned, whoops. Okay. Even though I'm positioned pretty far, I can kind of hear it. And the closer I get, obviously the louder that's getting. I'm hearing a little bit out of each speaker. Okay, now I'm hearing it out of both speakers pretty clearly, but again, he's kind of in front of me. A lot quieter. Almost nothing. And now I'm starting to hear the one behind me. Which again, I'm only hearing out of the left side. And now I'm hearing it out of the right side because that makes sense for proportionality. So there's kind of the basics on how you do spatial audio and how you do not spatial music. I hope that tutorial helped out. If it did, as always, please like and subscribe. That helps out. Please check out our sponsors is too strong of a word, but our where we stole our audio from today, which would again be zapsplat.com, and the link should be in the comments. And as always, in closing, we're going to encourage you to keep on creating. Have a great night, everybody.